This is a sermon for January 8th, 2023. I want to talk about Epiphany, and I'm going to start reading from Isaiah 60, 1 through 6. Get out of bed, Jerusalem. Wake up. Put your face in the sunlight. God's bright glory has risen for you. The whole earth is wrapped in darkness, all people sunk in deep darkness. But God rises on you. Divine sunrise glory breaks over you. Nations will come to your light, kings to your sunburst brightness. Look up, look around. Watch as they gather. Watch as they approach you, your sons and daughters coming from great distances. When you see them coming, you'll smile, big smiles. Your heart will swell and, yes, burst with joy. All those people returning by sea for the reunion, a rich harvest of exiles gathered in from the nations. And then from John 1, verse 5. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. Well, we celebrate the Festival of Lights leading up to Christmas and also leading up to the winter solstice, which is around December 21st. And up until December 21st, the daylight gets a little bit shorter by a minute and a half or so each day. And then after December 21st, the daylight gets a little bit longer. It feels like it gets shorter even longer into January and February because the cold of winter does affect us. But I hope that we're sufficiently aware of the natural world that we are aware that the daylight is getting just a little bit longer. I think that one of the reasons we long for fire in the winter is that we want anything that warms our souls. And so seeing a fire can be warming to both body and soul. I happened to see at the gym in Durand, the Anytime Fitness, they had a fireplace roaring on a video screen, and it caught my eye. I thought that was pretty funny. Well, we want the warmth in the winter. We want daylight. We want light in the winter. I've been indoors at times in the winter, and the sunlight has come through the window, and it's warmed me physically as well as warming my soul. I want my face in the sun, much like it says, get out of bed, Jerusalem. Wake up. Put your face in the sunlight. I have felt that in the winter. God's bright glory has risen for you. No matter that the world is wrapped in darkness, God rises on you. Divine sunrise glory breaks over you. And then we have nations will come to your light, kings to your sunburst brightness. I think of Louis XIV in France. He was the Sun King, I think they called him. And he had lots of glass and mirror and gold and silver. He was very, very wealthy, obviously, well, for a lot of reasons, because there were a lot of very, very poor people, but he encouraged that kind of glory to be associated with his name. And yet here we have it associated with God and with all of the nations, recognizing that Israel has God and has light. Well, this becoming aware of look up, look around is the encouragement of all mindfulness teachings. We become aware of the glory of all that is. We're surrounded by wonder, by love, by kindness, and more. And surely there is darkness in the world. We can acknowledge that while we turn toward brightness. If you've ever seen the time-lapse photography of sunflowers turning their faces toward the sun throughout the day. Well, I came across a Mary Oliver poem called Poppies, which contrasts the deep indigo darkness of night, which is associated with death in the poem, with the full warming sunlight shining through the poppies. So this is how the poem goes. The poppies send up their orange flares, swaying in the wind. And so you can see these poppy flowers, the bright orange on the end of a long stem, very much like flares being sent up. It's a lovely, lovely thing, swaying in the wind. And then Mary Oliver mentions the indigo darkness. She says, there isn't a place in this world that doesn't sooner or later drown in the indigos of darkness. Of course, loss is the great lesson. And so, but now for a while, the poppies shine like a miracle as it floats above everything. And then Mary Oliver goes on to say, and light is an invitation to happiness. And that happiness, when it's done right, is a kind of holiness, palpable and redemptive. And then Mary Oliver in the poem goes on to mention baptism. She says, I am washed and washed in the river of earthly delight. And what are you going to do? What can you do about it, deep blue night? Well, this is such a contrast between the darkness of the indigo night and loss and darkness. And then we have the bright orange flares of the poppies and the beautiful light, and how light is such a blessing. And so we even have the orange of almost a fire light color. So it's a wonderful poem. Winter really is a blessing in our lives because we understand the power of death, the drowning in the indigos of darkness. We have to be fairly smart to not freeze to death in our part of the world. And of course, it's even more true in other parts of the world where they have more winter than we do. We understand what it's like in winter when we have very little color. We don't have the lush greens of summer. We have very little color for our eyes to rest upon. And this allows us to treasure the light and the warmth all the more in all the other 3 seasons that we have. And I love how the poem, Mary Oliver poem says, I am washed and washed in the river of earthly delight. And what can you do about it, deep blue night? We understand the warmth of summer. We understand the warmth of sunlight. We understand the warmth of awareness of great blessings. So the Hebrew scriptures talk about Hesed, or womb love, as a very concrete way that God loves us. And so what we have in a large part of the covenant people messages is this very concrete love of God in womb love, very human, very earthy. And then we also have in the Gospel of John, we have kind of an ultimate meaning. Logos is the Greek word, and it's a philosophical Eastern concept, meaning ultimate meaning. And in John it says, we have seen his glory, full of grace and truth. From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. So in terms of God's love, we have the very earthy, human, humble concept of a woman's womb and her love. And then we also have the John 1 verse 5 ultimate meaning, logos, love of God as well. And so I love that the Bible has 2 different ways of looking at the love of God. So from the fullness of love, we receive grace upon grace, the steadiness of womb love, and logos, ultimate meaning, as another way of expressing love. So my question is, what would the earth look like if everyone on earth, every human being, was so full of both kinds of love, the earthy love and the philosophical love? What if everyone was so full of love that we all radiated this God love? I can imagine that things would be chaotic and fall apart in terms of the way the world expects things to be. It's almost like government would say, you can't just go around giving things away unless it benefits the government. But no, it's when it has to do with ego, it's my way or the highway, and it's you. Everything has to be paid for. That's just the way things are. That's reality. You can't go around giving stuff away. It upsets everything. And I can imagine that people didn't like Jesus' teaching that that God gives love away. Religious authorities didn't like that, and the idea that everyone belongs to everyone and everyone can care for everyone. Governments didn't really care for that either. So, yeah, the way we have God showing grace in John's gospel is that the wine ran out. And so the miracle is that there was wine for everyone, and not just any wine, but the best wine. And then we have John 10:10. God came that we might have life and have abundant life. Again, it could ruin a market economy. It could ruin the world's rules if everything is given away. It's just like becoming a Christian. You have to do A and then B and then C and then D, and you have to do it in the right order, right? In order to be a Christian. And churches run in a worldly fashion. But what if grace was truly at work in every human life, in every human group, in every religion, in every government? Imagine what the world would be like if everyone loved and gave, and so that everyone had every need met. Imagine what that would be like. It would be chaotic in the way we want things to be. We have such a strong sense of the good are rewarded and the bad are punished. Well, what if everyone received grace? What if absolutely everybody received love and grace? Look at the Isaiah 60 passage again. Light is dawning, transforming the darkness into light. The dawn of light lets us know that life will continue. Another day, another year, another opportunity to make the world a brighter, more kind, and loving place. A good laugh is pure grace. Laughter makes us better friends with ourselves and everybody around us. My older brother happened to be on Zoom when his little grandson, his first grandson, took 3 steps right into his father's arms. And you might say the miracle was that my son was on Zoom with this son and his little tiny grandson. But my brother said the miracle was the look on his son's face, because that was the recognition of the miracle when he saw his son take his first 3 steps. It's remarkable. You know, we can ask ourselves, where's the greater miracle? Where's the greater wonder? Receiving grace, loving each other? It could be either one. I think we get caught up in negative thinking. We get caught up in tit for tat kind of thinking. I'm not going to forgive that person because they don't deserve it. Or I get caught up in anxiety because I'm worried. Because why? Because the world doesn't run on love. Well, what if it did? What if the world did run on love, and what if grace was all around us? Isaiah 60 contains instructions to turn our faces toward the warmth of the sun, toward radiant glory of God's own miracle of love, toward joy, toward the bursting of glory and light. I need that during this time of year. And then look at Jesus in John chapter 1. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. No matter how powerful the darkness cannot extinguish the radiant light of God. Amen.